but he will certainly make sure of putting it out first without worrying about too much distance. Nicely controlled stab punt. Steve Mortimer, English. Mortimer floating it to Graham Hughes. Penrith are a pretty difficult side to bust up the middle, especially early in a game. They'll be concentrating their defence there. Graham Hughes takes advantage. Good weaving run. Kevin Dan putting him down. Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Chris Mortimer making a break. Peter Mortimer, Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Folks. Tackler was Warren Fenton. Second rower Lou Platts there too. And Mark Hughes using all of his experience to drive Penrith back. Mark Hughes returning to this Canterbury side today after missing about 4 or 5 matches with a hamstring injury, and he's been rushed back into the team with the injury suffered by Canterbury last week.
Very good tactics early too to get on the attack, but it's a Penrith ball, and that gives them the opportunity to try and get out of their quarter line. Early possession will be important in this match.
Henry Foster, Simmons, Sheens. He's a remarkable man. He retired last season and made a comeback to play his, I think now his 13th season with Penrith. Long kick put down by Penrith. Tony Armstrong's wing. Got Brentnell in support. Caught by Brayman. Kick over the top from Steve Folks is a good one. Will it? No, it won't. Well, Kevin Dan went very close himself to going to touch. Playing it to Wolf. Lou Ivanovic from the second row. Simmons. Ivanovic getting it out to Foster. Brayman. Fenton. It's Graham Jennings, the 5'8". And 6 tackles for a scrum about 15 metres inside Penrith's half.
Possession certainly helping Penrith there, and they're starting to get their attacking act together with this fellow Jennings being featuring.
Kevin Dan, the fullback, playing at the Lou Platts. Foster. It's Fenton. First time Penrith have been in Canterbury's half. Long pass. Shane Marshall, who was tripped beautifully in that low tackle, lost the ball. And the penalty against Penrith, there were about 4 or 5 of them inside the 5 metres in defence. Canterbury getting the penalty just over halfway.
Penrith trying very hard to get their attack together, but in that occasion they lost possession to Canterbury, and again we see Brentford with that beautiful long kick, well controlled, the ball under control all the time, and again Canterbury have the chance of getting in first points on the board.
Steve Mortimer. Graham Hughes, whose performance today could well decide whether or not he's going to get a berth in one of the Sydney sides to play country in about 5 weeks' time. English, Mark Hughes, Robinson, Gary Hughes, Graham Hughes. So all 3 Hughes brothers combining to take Canterbury to within 11 metres of the Penrith posts. English, Steve Mortimer, Mark Hughes, Steve Mortimer. English, Graham Hughes, Gary, little kick through, here's Steve Folks. Folks racing forward with Brentnell, who dives. And no try. It was grounded by Penrith in goal first. We'll have a look at that as winger Rod Wright was able to get there first and ground it just before the outstretched hands of the diving Greg Brentnall. It was a nicely placed kick, though, put through. Here it is.
Yes, very well placed indeed, along the ground. And right on the job, and Brentnall almost going in, but Hughes is beaten to the ball.
Play restarted with the dropout by Kevin Dan, a long high one to Brentnall, who's going to get under it. That had plenty of height, not enough distance as far as Penrith were concerned, because Canterbury have got the ball on the quarter line. Gary Hughes. Brother Mark and English, the hooker. Graham Hughes, Steve Mortimer. It's Chris Mortimer. Pat English, Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Steve Folkes. John Coveney will play the ball on the 5th tackle, and Canterbury again with the option of putting it up. Little one over the top for the winger, who's flying through with Peter Mortimer. Peter Mortimer getting there first, and the ball knocked into touch in goal by winger Kenny Wolfe. Well, again, Steve Mortimer showing how dangerous he is with that little kick.
And a good tactics too, because having to turn the Penrith defence around, Ken Wolfe just getting to that ball and knocking it into touch.
And a good rake by Pat English. Gary Hughes, caught by Jennings. Brentnall. To Mark Hughes, Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Graham Hughes. Bullocking run, getting it to Peter Mortimer, out to the second row, Folkes. Folkes has got winger Want going with him. Now here's the pace of Steve Want. Watch him go from here, getting a good bounce. Steve Want is able to score the first try of the match. That came from the kick earlier, but what remarkable lead-up work from Graham Hughes to lead to that first try. That bullocking run from deep in his own territory by Graham Hughes has led to a try by this man, Stephen Want.
This is the sort of play that they expect from Graham Hughes just prior to this lead-up, but the beautifully placed kick by Steve Folkes enables Steve's Want to get well and truly in front. He's onside, but waits for the bounce of the ball. Dan desperately trying to get hold of him, but wants in for the try.
And from head on, you'll see how Graham Hughes got that pass away, and then it went to Steve Folkes, and Folkes judging the situation well with that kick. Now watch Steve Want accelerate, but then he slows down. He waits for the good bounce to avoid knocking on and scores. Armstrong attempting the conversion from the quarter line and steers it straight between the posts to take Canterbury to a lead of 5 points to 0. And that's after about 17 minutes of the first half.
It's a fine kick. I just wonder what sort of an effect it will have on the Penrith players, with Canterbury getting the first points up after 16 minutes with that excellent try there by Steve Want. And I noticed that Canterbury were applying the centre tactics of taking the ball up the middle and hoping, as we see now, hoping to pull in the outside defence. But they've been concentrating there so that they could bring in the outside backs. But Brentnall, beautiful long left-footed kick deep into Penrith territory, and that's a tremendous kick indeed. Canterbury players would be wise to move up and contain them in their own quarter line, which they do. Wolfe being caught in possession for Penrith.
And the Canterbury defence making sure that Penrith are going to stay near their own goal line. That's winger Rod Wright, who's come right across from the other side of the ground to get involved in the action. Good little pass back behind the play to fullback Dan Simmons. Roy Simmons is a remarkable footballer too. He plays hooker, has played lock, has played halfback. And in fact, this Penrith side have got quite a number of players able to play not so much in a couple of positions, but quite a number of positions that don't really tend to go with each other. I remember watching Royce Simmons in a Group 10 grand final, played out at Bathurst, and he hooked for most of the game, and then after a while he was moved and went into halfback.
Nice to be versatile. You certainly know what the hooker required.
Peter Mortimer.
The Penrith defence, though, they're still keeping on their job. Canterbury working the ball, and this fellow Graham Hughes, he's trying very hard to make the break. Tapping it forward.
That was a solid tackle from Brayman. That would have hurt anybody. Mark Hughes, good pass to Folkes. He's playing out on the wing, gives it to Want.
I think Folkes on that occasion wasn't quite sure where the sideline was. He was a little bit too close to give that pass.
Scrum win to Penrith. Kevin Dan up in the movement. A nice little dummy from Warren Fenton. To Dan. Penrith forwards very slow to organise themselves. Jennings. At centre, Eddie Play, and a good pass to Marshall. Shane Marshall streaking downfield.
There's a great piece of centre play there between Flay and Marshall. Brilliant running.
Lou Platts. That's the sort of form that took him to England and France with the Australian World Cup side in 1975. Oh, a bruising hit by Graham Hughes on Fenton. Graham Hughes, another crashing tackle assisted by John Coveney. High kick by Brayman. Watch for Brentnall. Here he is. Went up a bit early. Here's Zavanovic, but the Penrith players were offside. It's not actually the ruling.
Jack Danzy's actually penalised Kevin Dan then. Kevin Dan, as he ran through, had his eyes set firmly on Greg Brentnall without even looking at the ball, and he's penalised him for going in and interfering with Brentnall.
Greg Brentnall gets his sweet revenge by gaining about 35 metres with that kick. Robinson. Sheens and Simmons, the defenders. Been some pretty bruising tackles so far in this game. Mark Hughes.
The beauty is you can stay on your feet.
Steve Mortimer. That'll find touch.
Canterbury are leading 5 points to 0, and it's not a winning lead by any means. With time getting away in this first half, and Canterbury, it's been all Canterbury in possession. Penalties are interesting too, Gary, by the look of it.
Yes, Canterbury running right away with those at the moment, particularly in the scrums, cause difficulties. It's Canterbury 8-2 in the penalties and Penrith 4-2 in the scrums.
Winger Tony Armstrong is about 15 metres out from the goal line. Coveney. English. Robinson. Doing some tremendous tackling. Tim Sheens went low with Zavanovic high. Chris Mortimer. Another nice tackle. Zavanovic. Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes. Mark Hughes. Straight through the defence, picked up support. Pat English went himself. Play on. Brentnall is close, he's over. Greg Brentnall scoring. Too much power, too long a reach. And after the movement looked like breaking down close to the line, fortunately for Canterbury, the ball had gone backwards, and when they retrieved it, they were able to force the scrum, or the try scored by Greg Brentnall.
It looked like the movement was going to fall down at one stage, and it was their ability to keep it alive, with English going up the centre there, being supported by Chris Mortimer. But the ball actually does come back, and Stevie Mortimer again on the job, throwing it out to Brentnall. And now you notice the Penrith defence is flat-footed at that stage. and Brentnell has the strength to be able to force his way over.
That was the second try of the match, and here it is with Pat English keeping the ball. He loses it, and Steve Mortimer takes it away from Mark Hughes, slips the pass to Brentnell, and Brentnell, caught by Foster and Jennings, the halves, is able to reach through and score. Tony Armstrong. And another 2 points. 10 points to 0 is the score.
I'd say that Brentnell try and that 10-0 lead, Teddy Glossop would be breathing a sigh of relief, because Canterbury have had all the ball this first half, and they were restricted to only 5 points. But that was a very important try, that one, scored in the 29th minute, and they needed it, Canterbury, to give them that 10-0 lead, and now that's going to relieve the pressure. They can now throw the ball around a little bit more and really try and turn it on.
Shane Marshall, he was born in Ningen, although all his football's been played in Sydney. Canterbury outside backs were penalised. Shane Marshall wasn't a player born in Ningen. I was referring to Rod Wright. Shane Marshall's a local junior, but quite a number of local juniors in both of these sides, and some very talented footballers amongst them. Kevin Dan driving Canterbury backwards, but he gained only about 20 metres with the kick. Brayman. Platts. Zavanovic. Canterbury reaching the ball first, forcing that error on Zavanovic. It was a good hard tackle by Coveney. Pat English. Graham Hughes, Steve Mortimer. Steve Folkes running wide. Mortimer, Gary Hughes. Bringing it infield is Chris Mortimer. Steve. Chris. And out to Folkes. Well, 5 tackles have gone, and deep inside Canterbury's territory, blind side. That's Peter Mortimer's kick for the touchline. Kevin Dan controlling it beautifully. Mark Hughes was the tackler who he got away from.
Get off quickly and all run back.
Foster. Platts. Brayman. Simmons. No other support, though. That's Fenton trying to run around Gary Hughes. .58 Graham Jennings is inside the Canterbury quarter. A couple of tackles to go for Penrith. Sheens. This is really the first time we've seen Penrith attack, and they lose the ball by throwing a loose pass out to Brentnell with an overlap, a huge overlap out here, if they can use it. Brentnell, a nice tackle too from Eddie Flay. Not a nice thing for a centre to be out there marked 2-1 and have to make a decision.
It's got to be the man with the ball. On that occasion at Penrith again, they're making too many errors. It's been the story of their first half, giving the ball back to Canterbury. Now, they needed to score there. Canterbury leading 10 points to 0 and a score with only around about 5 minutes of this first half remaining. Points on the board would have been of great benefit to the Penrith side to go in. But at the moment, there's the 10-point difference, and Canterbury doing it very well indeed.
Canterbury still letting it go. Steve Mortimer up the middle. Dummies the kick, tries to get around Dan. Trying to link up with his winger. There's Steve Want. He's got cover to beat. Dan missed him, Foster missed him, but the next one didn't. Steve Mortimer's got it. And Penrith come up with it through Henry Foster. Now away to second rower Platts.
Well, that's the type of football I expect we're going to see in the second half from Canterbury, and particularly Stevie Mortimer. He's been unloading, and it's one of the few runs he's had in this first half, but I expect we're going to see plenty of him in the second half.
Well, while Penrith bring it back in attack on halfway, Greg Brentnell behind play receiving attention, and Penrith are still inside their own half. A long pass right out to the centres. Marshall. Good backing up. Zavanovic's pass infield to Kevin Dan. Saw Dan put to the turf by Mark Hughes. Brayman. Ken Wolfe. It's Tim Machines. Pass went loose. Fortunately, was picked up for Penrith by Eddie Flay. Brayman. Line side to Simmons. End of 6.
Well, that's the half-time score, 10 points to 0, and if Penrith are going to have any chance at all, they've got to hold the ball for 6 tackles. Far too many times in that first half, they surrendered possession to Canterbury. Canterbury, on the other hand, at leading 10-0, I feel in the second half are really going to let the ball go. And Penrith will need to watch players like Stevie Mortimer, Graham Hughes, and of course Brentnell at fullback having an outstanding game. But that's the way I see it. If Penrith are going to get into the game, they've got to hold possession.
Little breeze to worry either side. And Canterbury get the game underway in the second half with the kick out downfield by Chris Mortimer. Wolfe. Another strong tackle by Graham Hughes. The ball went loose. That shows you the effect of such a firm tackle. The ball carrier quite often having the ball bounced out of his grasp, and that's forced a scrum.
Good half-lock combination there. It looks like they've lost the ball. Yes, that's just handing the ball back after Canterbury won the scrum. It was a good combination between Stevie Mortimer and Gary Hughes, but Mark Hughes, I should say. But they've lost the ball back to Penrith. Now, Penrith would be very wise, I feel, to clear this ball. They don't want to be pressured there, and as you can see, Graham Hughes is tackling harder than ever.
Tim Sheen's playing it for Penrith. Simmons. Picking up Kevin Dan, running well up out wide. One tackle for Penrith. They've got the ball on halfway almost. That was a dangerous pass from Platts. 6 tackles. Scrum win to Pat English, I think. Canterbury forwards holding it in the scrum. They get the penalty too, with Penrith collapsing. It was almost as though the Canterbury forwards controlled that ball in the scrum. The rake seemed to project it their way. Armstrong. English. Steve Mortimer. Robinson. English. Graham Hughes about 15 metres out. And there'll be a penalty go to Canterbury here with the ball stolen before it was played by Penrith. For a short kick, he's not taking so much trouble with it, but it's successful nevertheless. 12-0. Waiting for Armstrong to go back and mark a divot to give him a line to approach the ball, but he didn't need it with that close-in kick. Well, if the game wasn't out of Penrith's reach at half-time, it's getting more so that way now with that penalty goal by Armstrong. And Penrith have got to score shortly if they're going to have any chance of getting back into this game. They haven't got the ball with Canterbury to restart from the quarter line, but at least they've got Canterbury in their own territory.
Important when Penrith do get possession that they do hold it for 6 tackles. It's Canterbury in possession, and just as I was saying, watch how they're setting themselves out. Gary Hughes throwing it out wide. There's no panic passing about it.
Canterbury still have it, and Steve Mortimer dummying that kick. Support outside with the ball going loose, and Penrith come up with it. Sheens. His experience told him there, if you can't pass to advantage, don't. Platts. Jennings. Brayman. Good pass to Kevin Dan. Got the fullback to beat. Support outside. A terrible pass. Ken Wolfe gave it to Zavanovic. That should have been a try for Penrith. Simmons. Mark Hughes was awake up to Simmons' attempt to go from dummy half. How any side could bomb that try, I do not know. So Penrith, having managed to bomb 2 tries, now have another opportunity with that kick for the line by Kevin Dan, and it's taken them to about 7 metres from the Canterbury goal line. Let's see what they can do here. Roy Simmons has got the ball. Lou Platts. Penrith have got to score to have a chance in this match. They've got to score soon. Well, Danzy right on the spot noticed something in the tackle. Brentnell again has been hurt, and that's Graham Hughes who's down. That doesn't look good news. Let's see if we can pick up what happened in that tackle with Lou Platts going for the line. Now watch Graham Hughes to the left of the screen. In he comes, and he goes down underneath. And Graham Hughes left lying on the ground with, I think, a leg injury. And he's in agony. I would say that looks very much like a broken leg. But it doesn't look very good at all. We'll try and confirm that for you to find out exactly what is wrong with Graham Hughes. But it looks very much to me as though, as he was standing, as the ruck formed around him, his leg was caught underneath and it might well have been broken. And he knew straight away that something fairly serious was wrong. So Penrith with the ball on halfway. Zavanovic gave it back to Platts, and a nice low tackle by Robinson. Simmons, Brayman, Simmons. Long pass went out to the centres to Jennings. Wolfe. Platts, taken well by Chris Mortimer. 6 tackles gone. $12-0 remains the score with the scrum in Canterbury's territory, and the penalty from the scrum goes to Penrith with the Canterbury's hookers' feet offside. And the news from the Canterbury dressing room is that there is no break in Graham Hughes' leg. He's twisted his knee and has done some possible damage to the ligaments. Good work This is a try coming up, racing for the line. Rod Wright's in to score. The try came from nowhere. It was a well-rehearsed move from Penrith. And isn't it good to see a move that is rehearsed so often at training come off in the game? It worked to perfection, and it's Penrith's first point.
Number 2, Rod Wright. Canterbury 12, Penrith 3.
Yeah, this is what you call precision football, and it was very well rehearsed with the run around by Foster, getting the ball again, and look at the way Wright runs onto that ball. Plenty of speed. Brentnell has no chance whatsoever of getting across there, and he goes in for Penrith's first try. Well-executed try.
And from head on, the succession of passes out wide with Foster doubling around, and then with Wright on the burst, he steps through between Chris Mortimer and Steve Folkes and races away to score without a hand being laid on him. A very good try indeed. Kevin Dam, with not too difficult a kick, raises the flags to make it 12 points to 5 with about 22 minutes remaining in the game. Chris Mortimer to restart play. Puts it fairly deep. Trapped by Foster.
Wait for his head. Wait for his head. Down now, get up, lad. Quickly. Shut out, Robbo. Come here. Come on.
Try scorer Wright playing it about 30 metres out from his goal line. Sheens, Simmons, Savanovic, Foster. Good passing. Jennings gave it nicely to Eddie Flay. Looks for support inside it. Good cover by Steve Mortimer. That pass went forward, was knocked on. Canterbury crowd calling for the penalty for a deliberate forward pass.
Canterbury haven't got this game sewn up yet. Penrith are starting to get their attacking game together with that try by Wright will give them plenty of confidence.
Scrum penalty to Canterbury, and that time it was Royce Simmons penalising the scrum. About 26 metres out from Penrith's line. Steve Mortimer. It's Craig Madsen. English. Mortimer. Armstrong. Almost in the centre of the quarter line to Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes linking up with Brentnell, and he's dropped it. Just about through an open space there.
It's a famous Canterbury move, that one, and Brentford have scored a lot of tries from it. On that occasion, I think they may have put it on a little bit too far out.
Henry Foster trying to go through on the edge of the scrum. It was knocked over by lock forward Mark Hughes. That's his job too. Luke Platts has had a fairly strong game, but it's the way to put him down. Madsen moving in to knock him to the ground. We might be able to pick that up again with Platts standing in the tackle, and watch Madsen come in. The call was no doubt let him play it, and Madsen rushes in. Now here he comes rushing in from the right to put him down. Foster. Henry Foster slipping as he took the ball back from Darryl Broman. Platts, Fenton, now it's Dan up there. This is Eddie Flay about 6 metres from halfway. Dan, Broman and Jennings.
They're not playing much better now. It's about the best football they've played in the game to date.
Tim Sheen's raiding down the blind side, gets a good pass away. Warren Fenton, he's got support, pull back to beat, and it must be a penalty for obstruction. That's couldn't have been guaranteed to have been a try, but my word, Penrith were unlucky that the player inside was held. Watch this move with Sheens making the break down the blind side, and here's Gary Cook.
Yes, well, a great run by Sheens, and you can see inside it's the 5'8", the winger Ken Wolfe certainly held back there, and it may not have, as Alan said, have been a try, but there was a very strong chance that it would have been.
Jennings, Foster. Henry Foster slipping through one, but not that covering tackle of Mark Hughes. High one put up by Brayman. Waiting for it is Brentnall, and hit hard by Jennings, knocked into the in-goal area, just into the field of play.
We've got to give Brentnall 4 marks for that one. He was under extreme pressure, and he really copped it when he got hold of it. He saved the day for Canterbury, and Canterbury under pressure now. Penrith are playing a lot better, and I reckon Penrith feel they can win from here, and Canterbury are going to need to do something. There's no one at all lined out on that right-hand side in the Canterbury back line.
Gary Hughes. All the Canterbury players standing bunched behind the ruck. Seems to be very little organisation about their play at the moment. Steve Mortimer getting them moving with a good pass. It's Armstrong to Want. Getting it back to Peter Mortimer over halfway. Good break. Peter Mortimer out to Want. Want racing for the line and dragged down, but the pass had gone forward. Tony Armstrong coming down with it, and here's a replacement for Canterbury coming on. Steve Mullen going into front row. Penrith with that penalty of found touch close to halfway. Simmons. Foster. Jennings. Dan. Good strong tackle from Chris Mortimer on halfway. Foster. Brayman. Certainly trying hard to lead by example. There's one tackle to go for Penrith on halfway. Sheens. Snapped up by Chris Mortimer. Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes. Craig Madsen. Out to Brentnall. Good pass. Peter Mortimer spilled it, and Penrith have got it through Kenny Wolfe. They've lost it to 12 minutes to go in the game. 12-5 the score. Jeff Robinson being replaced, and Ted Glossop having a few words as the scrum goes down in Penrith's half, and they've won it. Jennings. Savanovic getting the pass on. Here's Savanovic now. Penrith have got the ball on halfway. They also have their centre, Eddie Flay, suffering from pretty sore shoulder. He's receiving attention back behind play, with Penrith in possession on the halfway line. Simmons getting it back. That's Jennings. Flay's being replaced. Nice little kick over the top. Brentnall misses the bounce. Steve Want regathered. Long one to the centres. Brentnall infield. Armstrong from the wing. On Canterbury's quarter line. Canterbury passing in desperation now. Mark Hughes, caught by Foster.
Number 20, Kevin Wood. He has replaced number 3, Eddie Flay.
Steve Mortimer taking his eyes off the ball for the knock-on. So one replacement already on the field. That's Eddie Flay, who's off, replaced by Kevin Podgy. And we also have Steve Martin coming out to go into the pack in place of Zavanovic. Canterbury win their first scrum for a while, and Mark Hughes will play at about 20 metres from halfway. So Penrith have been attacking for the last 10 minutes, and now the Canterbury have got that penalty to take them back into Penrith's half. I wonder if we won't see Canterbury start to produce some of the form we know they can.
Well, I think they have to, Alan, because they've been very disappointing in the second half. Admittedly, Penrith enjoyed the majority of penalties, and they had Canterbury under a lot of pressure. But I do think that the Canterbury, into that second half, they fell asleep. Their game went away. They had a 12-point lead. They still haven't scored a point in this half. And I do believe that Penrith's game did improve, and of course they scored that try, a good try by winger Wright. But if Canterbury can get in here now, if they can put extra points on the board, then I feel they'll wrap it up.
Steve Folkes. Steve Mortimer. Long firing pass out to his brother Chris, and gave it back inside. Peter Mortimer's come up with it. Tackle count starts again. Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Madsen. Still the ball goes through. Pat English, the hooker. 12 metres out, Craig Madsen, dummy half in number 23. Brentnall, try number 2. Greg Brentnall, the fullback, storming in on a Steve Mortimer pass on the blind side to score his second try of the match. 15 points to 5, the kick to come.
I don't think we need to worry too much about who's going to be the Australian fullback this year. He's had a magnificent game, but you notice Mortimer hold that ball up for that fraction of a second. Brentnall into it again. Defence can't hold him, and he scores his second try.
The timing of that pass was delightful from Steve Mortimer, and Greg Brentnall using his power to go over. Which he does to give him a line to approach the ball. Not many kickers have done that. So he's happy with that. And hits the post with that kick.
It's his first miss, and it hit an upright, so he's definitely a fellow to watch. He's very accurate indeed.
Tony Armstrong missed with the conversion of that try by Brentnall. The score remains at 15 points to 5, and we've got just on 6 minutes remaining in this match. Good break. Reg Gasnier posed the question before, when are we going to see Steve Mortimer run? He's hardly gone by himself today. Well, he's got 5 minutes to show us.
He's kept a very close eye on Stevie Mortimer. I think the Penrith players must have been listening to me, Alan, because he hasn't been allowed room to move. But at the same time, he's been in there ducking and showing the ball all the time. And, of course, his outside players have been able to benefit, because it's hard for the defence to know whether to go up or watch that Mortimer doesn't go through the break inside.
Gary Hughes, Want. Gary Hughes, a little kick over the top, was followed through beautifully. Penrith have got it through fullback Dan. Brayman, a neat little pass to Foster. His pass not so neat, but picked up by Sheens. It's Fenton out with the backs. Caught by Steve Mullen, number 28, who's the replacement prop for Jeff Robinson. Jennings, Brayman wide. Another long, low pass. Right out to the winger, and it's been spilt by Wolf. But he forces the knock-on for a scrum.
I think we can safely say that that's been the story of Penrith's life today, and they didn't give themselves much of a chance by forced errors, by losing possession. They played their best football in the second half, and at the time that's when they scored their try. They tried to rod right to give them some sort of hope of getting back into the game, but it's been too much lost possession on behalf of Penrith. Canterbury, on the other hand, they ran to that 12-0 lead, and they were a bit hesitant in the second half, but then that second try by Greg Brentnell was tidied the game up for Canterbury, 15 points to 5. Brentnell has got to be our man of the match. He's had an outstanding game with his 2 tries and also in defence. Also Mark Hughes at lock forward has had a great game. Stevie Mortimer's been contained today. We haven't seen too many breaks from him. But Coveney and Robertson up front have been very solid, and Graham Hughes, when he was on the field, also played outstanding football.
And there's a forward pass that brought up a Canterbury try just short. It was second rower Craig Madsen who made the break. And Madsen taking it over halfway. He had support outside, and he gets that pass away to Armstrong, but it was forward, and the penalty goes to Penrith. Penrith taking play to halfway. Good switch in play out to winger Podgy. Podgy going for the corner. Nice defence. Here's a late chance for Penrith. Jennings has regained the ball, juggling it on fingertips. Dan.
For their coach Johnny Peer to be disappointed that when they go together and they look sharp, but there are times when there's one man out and nothing happens.
Simmons got it away, and here's a chance. The ball can't get away. Ken Wolf, a long pass. That's been touched down out wide. A pass that looked a little bit doubtful too. Ken Wolf has scored the try on the far side. And here it is.
Try scored by number 5, Ken Wolf.
Well, this is just the sort of thing that Penrith can do when they try, and a good run there by Simmons to keep it alive across the back line there. It's one winger to winger, right, passing to Wolf, and Wolf goes in to score.
And from head on, you'll see the quick work as the ball is cleared from the ruck. It's Simmons who ran it across field. And as he slipped the pass away there to Steve Martin, the quick unloading saw the ball go right out to Marshall. Marshall got it away to winger right, and it was that pass from right to Ken Wolf that enabled the try to be scored out wide. Dan from a wide angle on the quarter line, places it nicely and gets 2 points. 15 to 10. And into the last 30 seconds of the game now, as the ball will be placed on halfway. We'll only just have time for the kick-off. Chris Mortimer turns his back on the ball and will now put it fairly deep into Penrith's territory. And run up by Podgy almost to the quarter line. There's the full-time siren, with Canterbury running out winners, not quite as impressively as one might have thought. The final score, 15 points to 10. Canterbury scored 3 tries to 2. Greg Brentnell notched 2 of those for the Bulldogs. The other to Steve Want. Tony Armstrong kicked 3 out of 4. For Penrith, wingers Wright and Wolf were the try scorers, and Kevin Dan kicked 2 goals from 4 attempts. Penrith won the scrums by 8-7. They were also favoured in the penalty count by 13-12. Well, Canterbury were always going to win this game, but there was no turning point. One of the significant facts about the game, though, was the interference suffered by Penrith in the second half. We saw a good break made out wide by Tim Sheens, and he picked up the support of lock forward Warren Fenton inside. Now, Fenton took the ball well up towards the goal line, and with winger Ken Wolfe in support, Wolfe's jersey was grabbed by Chris Mortimer, and he wasn't unable to have a free run at the ball. Well, who knows, Penrith might well have scored then, and a converted try might have at least levelled the scores. Well, the 5 tries in the match, which was your best, Reg?
Alan, I thought the best try was scored by the Canterbury winger Steve Want. It was an outstanding effort, and Graham Hughes featured very prominently in it. He was really keeping the ball moving, and the Penrith defence trying desperately to get him down, but he manages to get hold of the ball, get rid of it to Peter Mortimer, onto Steve Fakes. Now watch Fakes, he's got Steve Want on the inside, but elects to kick rather than pass, and Want goes on after that ball, and some intelligent play here from the winger by waiting for the bounce and going over for an excellent try.
Well, that was a fine team try by Canterbury. Undoubtedly, man of the match was Canterbury fullback Greg Brentnell. He was safe as a bank under pressure, fielding the high bombs, and he's chimed in at appropriate times to score 2 great tries, proving very difficult to stop near the line. It was a timely performance with the representative selections just around the corner.
So there it is, a game far different in quality from last week. Canterbury led by 10 points to 0 at half-time. They had 2 tries to 1 scored against them in the second half, but they ran out winners by 15 points to 10.